If we set the standards of communication, whether it be in the smart grid, whether it be in our healthcare system, whether it be in our school systems, if we set the rules as to what the standards are for how we exchange information, might we spur tremendous opportunity and economic growth from areas that we hadn't seen before. One of the startups that has me interested is Wolfram Alpha, which is the hot new Silicon Valley startup. And was chatting with the Wolfram team, and they consume data in an open format from the U.S. Department of Agriculture on caloric counts and agricultural information. And just as an example, they said, hey, Aneesh, don't tell my wife if she's watching the podcast, occasionally I'll have a Big Mac and fries. Type in Big Mac and fries in the search engine. And their capability is to pull the data that's publicly available in an open format, and they produce that little, that nice tag you see in the supermarket, which is the nutritional label, but it tells you a combination of information that is data from the Big Mac and the fries, so you see what the full package looks like when you consume it. This little app, consumable because we've got the data in an open format. So these principles of R&D, of open data standards, and of innovation in our procurement process are just some examples of how we think we're going to make a difference. I want to briefly touch on the notion of broadband and then relate that to our principles of open government, because these are all very related. When we see communities, in my experience in Virginia, very few investments have the potential for community transformation. Very few. I mean, we could try to make, you go back in history, what's the big bang we want to solve for transforming a certain community? It's not easy to find. But in the case of broadband, we've started to see examples of this starting to have an opportunity. I want to just share the story of Lebanon, Virginia, which is a community, part of our southwest area, largely a coal community, natural gas community, struggling from an economy that has had a hard time from a globalization standpoint. And frankly, very hard historically to say, hey, let's put up a big factory here because, geez, they're coming up all over the place. We're not finding that kind of, those are not the easiest opportunities. But they made an investment decision many years ago, and they said, what we're going to do as a community, much like what you've done here in Cleveland, is to take our tobacco settlement money and to put that into infrastructure in the 21st century. Put in high-capacity broadband lines, and all of a sudden, companies who could locate anywhere in the world could start to make decisions, say, if I located here, I could be just as connected to Cleveland or to Europe or to Asia because I'm sitting in Lebanon, but it wouldn't matter because I have that level of connectivity. And sure enough, 700 technology jobs attracted to the Lebanon community within several years of this infrastructure in the community. And it's transformed the way they think. I had the chance to visit Lebanon. There are a reasonable number of immigrants from the Indian subcontinent there, and I asked them how the life was like, and I said, geez, Aneesh, can you bring an Indian grocery store to the community? That would be particularly helpful. But it's really transformed. The first African-American woman was elected to city council, employed by one of the technology firms in that community's history. But I want to end with just a few words about a broader sense of where we are. Virginia, where I come from, is a commonwealth. It is not a state. When I lived in Arlington, which is on the D.C. border, I wouldn't know the difference. D.C. wanted to be a state, Maryland was, we were a commonwealth, couldn't really tell the difference. But we celebrated the 400th anniversary of the birthplace of Jamestown in 2007, and we had the Queen visiting. It gave our governor, Tim Kaine, the chance to remark on what it meant to be a commonwealth. And I think we've lost this notion in our public space. The notion is that we sometimes come together formally through the passing of laws, but more often than not, we come together as community, as neighbors, figuring out how we can make the park cleaner and safer, figuring out ways in which we can bring infrastructure to the community that we can't otherwise afford, knocking on Case Western's door to say, would you put up a wireless tower so you can beam into my neighborhood? That's the spirit of Commonwealth that we have seen all across America. What's so powerful about the capabilities of technology and innovation is it allows us to return to that spirit of Commonwealth in ways that traditional public policy may not succeed. And I want to just share with you but one example of how to think of this challenge, because I have to end in an acknowledgement of the reality of our world, which is we are in an economic challenging time. Jobs are not the easiest to come across these days. But I just want to share with you one example of spirit of commonwealth. How many jobs do you think are currently available in the American economy? Anybody want to guess? We have 3 million posted vacant jobs. 3 million. I would guess, Dr. Harris, that the Cleveland Clinic has a reasonable number of openings. We have segments of our economy that are growing. What's powerful about broadband and this notion of spirit of commonwealth is you could ask the following question. Could we mine all 3 million of those jobs, or more to the point, in the greater Cleveland area, and ask ourselves how many of those have to be done right physically here? When we think about this notion of commonwealth, there are communities not far away, Youngstown, further away. I learned today about Mansfield. Communities that are adjacent to us where they're suffering. They're our friends and neighbors too. And we would hope that there's going to be economic growth and transformation, and we look to see who will take those factories and to turn them into productive assets once more. But in the here and the now, in the spirit of commonwealth, how many of our vacant positions that we're having a hard time to fill could be surfaced in a community that's been hard hit? How many medical coding jobs, Dr. Harris, where you need maybe 6 or 7 months of community college training, could we repurpose in a town to provide access to jobs that have a reasonable wage in ways that we hadn't seen? We could look at these examples across any question we grapple with today, and that notion of what we do in the next 90 days or 6 months, which keeps me grounded about the opportunities for innovation. We can do that if we think of it in the context of spirit of commonwealth. I witnessed this firsthand this morning when Lev took me around Cleveland to show me examples of how folks in the community are working together to try new ideas. Now, some of them could scale up with government investment, with applications to programs and funding and so forth, but they're small concepts that are being prototyped in the spirit of commonwealth. We saw a Cleveland Clinic doctor talking to a patient to make sure that her diabetes was under control. All HIPAA compliant. We were making sure we were safe to figure out that discussion. The energy grid, we learned about opportunities for folks to consume information about whether they should do laundry at 4 o'clock or 6 o'clock because we'll avoid peak load and keep the systems running well. Those questions, those opportunities are going to come before us. You will ask me for advice or support on policy guidance. What should be in our budgets? What should we do in laws? How should we promote technology policy writ large? But you will also come to me and say, help me accelerate our community's spirit of commonwealth. That latter phone call, I can't wait to take. Thank you for your time. I look forward to your questions.
You can take a seat again because I have a few announcements. Today at the City Club of Cleveland, we are listening to Aneesh Chopra, Federal Chief Technology Officer for the Office of Science and Technology. We will return to our speaker in a minute for our traditional City Club questions. Now, we would like to return to our speaker for our traditional City Club question and answer period. We welcome questions from everyone, including guests. Holding the microphones today are City Club Assistant Director of Development, Marcella Brown, and Education and Outreach Coordinator, Deborah Agasti. Now, first question, please.